Let's start on the right of the machine with the reel for holding the full reel of labels. Up here we have the hot foil printer. We have the blade here for delivering the label. We have the roller for driving the bottle. We have the roller for ironing the label on. And we have the roller for holding the bottle onto the lower two rollers. And beneath we have the tensioning brush. At the top of the machine we have the control panel with the on-off switch, emergency stop, and the 3 buttons which are used to control the features. Down here we have the label sensor, the fork sensor, which registers the gap in the labels. And just behind here we have the entrainment roller, and it works with the metal roller here. And finally we have the spool which holds the empty backing for the labels with a clip that ensures the paper stays in place. We're going to show you piece by piece the way to thread a new roll of labels through the VL1. And we're going to start at this end where we're going to put on a fresh roll. First thing we need to do is find the Allen key tool, and then we can use it to undo the outer reel and remove it. Behind it you'll find a spacer, and the spacer needs adjusting so that it carries the cardboard tube inside the roll of labels. So I'm just going to hold that up there, and then I'm going to move the collar to approximately the correct position. Just undo the Allen bolt, slide the collar, and retighten, not too tight. Find the labels, slide them onto the collars, and then replace the outer shield with the collar on the outside so that you can do the clamp up. Again, using the Allen key tool, push and tighten at the same time, and ensure that when I rotate, the labels and the reel and the collars all rotate together. Okay, so label in place. Now we need to feed through over the first roller here, and then between the date coder and the pressing pad, which we'll look at in a second. So I'm just going to gently feed that through, a little bit at a time, over the next roller, and then across and down the next. Just feed that through. That needs enough to go right down to the bottom of the machine, and then we'll feed into the tension brush. Move the tension brush out of the way, use the Allen key tool. You'll see that the brush drops away. Feed the label underneath, giving ourselves plenty of label to work with. Bring up the brush so it's back in contact underneath the labels and pushing onto the roller. Just nip that up. There we go. Okay, from the bottom roller, what we're going to do now is peel off a couple of labels just to simplify things as we feed the backing through. So I'm just going to peel those out of the way. We don't need those. Bring the paper up from the bottom roller and through the fork of the sensor. Like that. Over this roller here. And then underneath the blade and between the roller. Okay, let's pull a little bit more label through. As you can see, we are starting to thread through. I need to go down, back over the blade. So over the top, under the bottle drive roller, and then through the entrainment roller with the metal roller lifted. Down through there. Feed the label through. And then finally, back over the bottom roller there. From this roller, underneath, we'll be going underneath this one, and then over the top of the final reel. I'm going to remove the clip and then feed through more label to give me some length to work with. Underneath, underneath, and then over the top. Turn the reel, use the clip. You'll find the two undercuts. Clip that in and then push that as far as it'll go. Switch off, unwind. Okay, get around the other side. a couple of checks before we begin putting the bottles in and labelling. What we want to do is ensure that the run of the label through the rollers is nice and straight. So as it runs through and over, we want to ensure that the label backing and the fresh labels are all running nice and true. They're not twisted or skewed. If you find they are twisted, then you can move the labels and the backing to the correct position. And we do that by just bringing some slack from the empty reel and then moving the paper to wherever it needs to be in its new position, and then we can retension. One key point is where the label comes underneath the blade and then returns over the top. And at this point, the upper and lower pieces of paper need to be exactly aligned. They don't need to be off or skewed. They need to be just above each other so that they're running in a straight line. Now we need to set the position of the label. And we may need a little further adjustment after, but this is a key point to get the label in the correct position, very close to the correct position. The blade needs to see a little bit of exposed label right along this edge. I'm going to continue to feed and turn the empty reel until I can see the beginning of a label appear at the blade. Continue to turn. There we go. You can see there around about 5 millimeters. We probably want around 3 millimeters, so I'm just going to go backwards with that. Just return that back. That will do for a starting position. And now we need to set the fork sensor so that it stops in the same position over and over again. We now need to move the sensor to the correct position. It's secured by 2 screws at the back here, and I can undo those and I can slide the sensor on its bracket down the slot until it's in the correct position. I'm now going to move it, and then we will see what the sensor looks like in its correct position. So we've now moved the position of the sensor. I've used the 2 screws at the back. I've loosened those, moved the bracket down a fraction, and then retightened. And now you can see that the sensor is inside the beginning of the label. That's the position we are going to start with, and we may need to do a small adjustment, but as a starting point, we are very nearly ready to put labels on bottles. So we've got our label in its initial starting position. We've got about a centimetre sticking out of the blade. We now need to switch the labeler on, and then we can check to ensure that the label's in the correct position. So on our control panel, we need to ensure that the emergency stop is out, and that can be done by twisting. There's an arrow on the top. Switch on the main switch. The display will go through a little short self-test, and you will see 2 words, loop and options, and to the right of options a star. In order to apply labels, we need to move to the position loop, and we can use the minus button. Press that once and the star will move up, and then I press the menu button to enter that, and we will get a symbol that says ready. The last job, close the metal roller onto the entrainment roller, and then we should be ready. Okay, let's switch on and apply the label. So switch on, self-test, select loop, press menu, and we're ready to go. And by simply pushing the bottle against the start bar, we should apply the first label. Okay, so I'm going to put that one down there, and then I'm going to make a further adjustment to the position of the start bar. Again, I will switch the machine off. Change the position by pushing the bar inside the machine. Restart. Select loop, press menu, take another bottle, press it against the start bar, and I'm going to sit those 2 bottles next to each other, so you should be able to see how the position of the label changes on the bottle. With the unit turned off, we're now going to adjust the height of the top roller for the particular bottle size that we're going to be using. My bottle is here, and if I sit that on the bottom two rollers, you can see that its current setting, the top roller is very close. It's far too close, and the roller needs lifting up. So we use the spanner from the kit. There's a flat on the shaft. Undo the shaft, lift the roller up, approximately a finger away. That's all we need. And then tighten the shaft again. And we're done. I'm going to adjust the position the label is applied to the bottle. You can see currently our bottle is in position on the lower two rollers. Machine is turned off, and currently the alignment of the label is at the bottom of the bottle. We actually want the label to come further up, and in order to do that we're going to adjust the start bar, and we're going to use the Allen key to move the start bar further inside the machine. So with my Allen key I undo the top screw, slide the complete bar inside the machine, bring the bottle up to the bar. Let's try it there. Tighten the screw and just check from the viewpoint you're looking at now where the label is positioned on the bottle. Next we're going to look at the hot foil printer and how to set that up to ensure that the printing takes place in the date code box on your labels. You can see here we've got our white box which is ready to receive the hot foil printing, and we're going to show you how to move the printer so that the print stays within that area. Okay, let's concentrate on aligning the hot foil printer. We need to have the main unit switched on. We need to have the printer switched on. We've got our mains cable with its power switch, and we also need the second red button set to 1. And what we're going to use is the manual button here in black, which is currently set to 0. And each time we press that, it will create a stamp onto our label, and that will ensure that we've got the printing in the correct place. There are two other controls here. The yellow is labelled as delay. We don't use delay. Ours is set on 0. And the top one in red is temperature. And generally we set to the 12 o'clock position, and there's an indicator here that tells you when it's heating and when the heating is off. So it's currently reached temperature. If I increase the temperature, you will see the red light comes on. And if I reduce the temperature, you will see the red light goes off. So we are up to temperature, which we need to be. And so what we need to do now is to move the printer in one of two directions to stamp onto our white square on our label. So let's move the printer. So here's our target area in the white square, and we have two areas we can move. We can move the whole mechanism backwards and forwards along this rail here, and then the red lever here will stop and allow the whole printer to move fore and aft in this direction. So 4 fixings, let's undo all of those, and that will allow the whole thing to slide forward towards the target area. It's quite tight. Okay, just bring the label back, retighten those, and then using the orange lever we can undo that one, and we can move the whole printer assembly right across to where it needs to be so that we actually print on the target. And the final thing we need to do is there is a block underneath that needs to be moved, and that just slides across until it's in its center position right beneath the little white knob here. Okay, so we've got the position of the printer in the right place, approximately. We can manually print, so we're switched on, and we can use the black button, and by pressing on the 1, it manually prints. And then I can manually feed the label forward to see and check to see if we have got ourselves in the right position. So a little bit more adjustment needed there, but we're fairly close. So I've made a small adjustment. I've undone the orange lever on the side. I brought the printer towards us. And again, I'm going to use the manual button and test print. And then we'll feed the label forward and see if we've got it in the right place. You need to change numbers or letters on the cleach, then you need to remove it. Use the white knob here, push in, 1/4 of a turn, and then withdraw the cleach. Remember, this is hot, so you can see there the numbers and the spaces that are in the lines. If you are changing whilst hot, please take care. Once you've made the necessary changes, then just pop it back in the holder. There we go. We're going to change the settings on the display to accommodate a front and back label. So we need to change and tell the machine that it's going to deliver 2 labels instead of a single label. So we go into the menu, we move out of loop into options, and then press the menu button again, and then we begin the list of options that we can choose and select from. And we have to work through all of them right to the end, and then we can go back into the ready state. So if I continue through the range, so first one is languages. We're not going to change the language. Press the menu button again. Regulate back label is an adjustment we'll have a look at in a moment, but firstly we need to tell it to deliver 2 labels. Okay, so this is the setting we're looking at, 2 labels, 1 reel, currently set in the off position. And if we use the plus or minus buttons, we can select the on setting, and then we can go all the way around through the rest of the parameters here which we're not interested in. So we get back to the beginning, select loop. So we've now selected 2 labels. We're going to deliver the first 2 labels onto the bottle. Same as before, bottle's in position, top roller set correctly, and just by pressing, we've now delivered 2 labels. The VL1 has the ability to move the position of the back label relative to the front. So what we're looking for is a consistent gap either side of the front label to ensure they are both the same, and that the back label is directly opposite. We can make these changes by adjusting time on one of the parameters. And we're going to adjust the time now, although our first attempt is pretty good. The gap between the 2 labels is fairly close. But we will show you how to make changes to the gap right now. Back into the menu, select options, and we're looking for the parameter which states regulate back label. Underneath the title is a time, 0171 milliseconds, and this is the time that the label stops delivery while the bottle continues to rotate. By adjusting this time, you can move the back label further away or closer to the front label. Use the plus and minus buttons to make a change. I'm going to make a change and take this up to 200. Select the menu. We need to pass through all the other options. Back into loop. Press the menu, and now we're ready. So let's try a new bottle. Okay, you can see on this bottle that the gap between them is now vastly different. That small adjustment in time has moved the position of the back label relative to the front. We're going to do a third bottle just to prove a point about the adjustments we're making. So back into options, scroll through. I'm going to increase the timing again to 250. Through the other menus, back into loop, select menu, and we're ready. One important note when labelling with front and back labels to ensure that the label at the blade, in this case the front, is the same label going through the sensor down here. So this is a front label, and the label here is also a front label. This is much more relevant if your front and back labels are different sizes, as getting this wrong could mean delivery problems. So when setting the sensor, ensure that at the blade is the front label and the sensor is set correctly at another front label. You can see on our small labels here that we could in fact move the sensor up and be reading a back label. Ensure that you are pointing and set on a front label